Okay, well, welcome to another episode of Derek's Travel Chats. And today I'm very pleased to have with me Jonathan Sargent of the Royal Irish Tours and Sandra Moffett of Tourism Ireland. Welcome to this wonderful show that I've created. Glad to have you here. So I'll start with Sandra, if you would like to introduce yourself and what your job with Ireland tourism and how Ireland is coping with COVID-19 and so on.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Sandra Moffett. As Derek said, I have been in Canada for 5 years now. I'm working with Tourism Ireland for 2 of those. So missed Ireland so much that wanted to reconnect. So it's great to be able to combine my love of Canada and my love of Ireland with my role here. Ireland is doing really well, I would say, overall with the COVID-19 situation. I'm proud to say that they've handled the whole situation in a very positive way. Our Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, former now, was formerly a doctor. So I think that really kind of lent a good lens to it, with his medical expertise. We took a very cautious approach to the coronavirus situation, and that has really, stood us in good stead as regard to having low overall cases. The country is starting to slowly reopen. So, most of the tourist attractions in the country are open now. The hotels are open now. Bars that serve food are open now. But there are still some restrictions in place. So we are taking a cautious approach just to make sure that those numbers stay down, similar to what, many Canadian provinces are doing. So, some pubs still remain closed. There is currently a 2-week quarantine in place for international arrivals to the country. And that's being reviewed on a really, really regular basis. So hoping that'll be lifted sooner rather than later, of course. But I think it's a smart approach just to make sure that things are as safe and as positive as they could possibly be at this time.
Oh, great. Sounds like they're Ireland, as usual, has everything in hand. So, and Jonathan, how has Royal Irish Tours been dealing with the shutdown and your plans to move forward?
Yeah, so thanks, Derek, for having us on. So just a bit about who Royal Irish Tours are first. We're Canada's leading tour operator selling Ireland, and we are a Canadian company based in Richmond Hill in Ontario. Our owner, Ian Duffy, fell in love with the Canadian and moved here 30 years ago and set up Royal Irish Tours, going into our 20th year in 2021. So unfortunately, we haven't had many travelers this year. So obviously the COVID situation began mid-March. Our touring season generally begins in April, and we pushed back our service till June, then July. But as of this week, we've decided to postpone the remaining coach and sightseeing tours until April 2021. So people can still do self-drive or chauffeur drive trips later in the year, if it is safe to do so. We don't recommend doing it until the 2-week mandatory quarantine is lifted, which I know Tourism Ireland and the Irish government are reviewing weekly. So for now, we're just planning ahead for 2021 and hoping for a big bounce back year next year.
So how long you've been in Canada, you say, Jonathan? Well,
Yeah, well, actually, as of July 4th, I became a Canadian citizen, so got my Canadian passport.
okay.
Even though I have a strong Irish accent. So I'm here just over 9 years now. So originally worked for the Irish Tourist Board, and then I worked for Trafalgar, who I know you had Wolf on a few weeks ago, and then back to the Irish Tourist Board, and then moved over to Royal Irish Tours back in 2018. So always selling Ireland in some capacity.
Excellent. Sandra, I know your company or the tourism board deals with a lot of the Ireland inbound companies. So how have they been dealing with COVID-19, and is there any worry that some of these companies are not going to be able to weather the storm, so to speak?
Yeah, I think overall, like I said, pretty positive, but the industry in Ireland, like the industry here, it's been decimated. It's a really turbulent time for a lot of our businesses. Tourism is one of Ireland's biggest economic drivers. It employs 325,000 people on our little island. we're not a big place, so that's a significant portion of our economy. It drives 5.6 billion to the exchequer. So really, we need to get it back and booming as soon as possible. But overall, the businesses are doing well. We have a tourism recovery task force in place. Actually, the Tourism Ireland CEO, Niall Gibbons, is a member of that, along with some very well qualified tourism professionals across the island of Ireland. And they're really actively working on developing recommendations and a plan for moving forward to make sure that tourism can revive and recover in the safest and most sustainable way possible. So, that will identify priorities and key enablers and marketing opportunities for us to be able to bounce back, as Jonathan said earlier. Each sector in Ireland, whether it's bars and restaurants or accommodation, attractions, activities, they also all have their own guidelines in place. And they are displayed with a safety mark, so you can very visibly see when you're in the country that these premises and properties are actively adhering to all of those guidelines and the regulations that are in place. And that's also being monitored very, very actively by our government. And there are spot checks in place to make sure that everybody is adhering to those guidelines. Hotels and attractions and everything is pretty much open on the island at the moment. And I think, again, similar to what we're doing in Canada here, we're all taking the opportunity to have staycations, and domestic tourism is doing well at the moment. We're lucky that we're enjoying a really good summer for weather at the moment in Ireland too. So people are, who live in Ireland, we're not seeing a lot of international tourists, especially from North America at this time due to the mandatory quarantine. But people are staycationing, and that's really keeping the businesses alive for this year. And as an industry, I think we're agile, we're flexible, and we're very, very resilient. So yeah, I think overall working hard to make sure that peace of mind is in place for our visitors, and keeping things open and thriving and moving forward.
Resilient is definitely a word to describe the Irish people, especially during. I can say that based on my two trips to Ireland. Resilience is probably that's definitely a good word to describe the Irish people and their companies. So, thank you very much. So, and Jonathan, Royal Irish Tours, as you said, you're into the group tours and so on. So, a lot of your activities into the movement of people around Ireland and Northern Ireland and other countries. So what are some of the key things that you see are being done locally to ensure the safety and health of participants?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big things people can do is have, smaller group sizes on larger coaches. So for 2021, generally we have 38 passengers on our large 45-seater coaches. But next year we'll be operating on a maximum of 30 guests and on a slightly larger coach, 55 seater. So that's just one step we've taken. There'll also be plexiglass, and we're refitting a lot of the coaches. And then, as Sandra touched on, the COVID safety charter that all the companies in the Republic of Ireland have to go through. It's a voluntary training in order to get a safe COVID safe mark, and in Northern Ireland they have We're Good to Go mark. So we're only going to work with companies who have done that next year, and the majority of the hoteliers and attractions that we work with have already done it. Although it's voluntary, pretty much I'd say 90% of people have already done it because they know how important it is. And they really get it in Ireland. They really pride themselves on having incredibly hospitable people. They say we have the Cave Meal of Fáilte, the 100,000 welcomes. So no matter where you go in Ireland, you'll meet the friendly locals, but they pride themselves on giving the warm Irish welcome to the guests that visit. So smaller group sizes is definitely one thing, staff training, and we'll also have a larger focus on some of our chauffeur drive product and our driving holidays. So if people are comfortable driving on the left, we actually always find people from Newfoundland are often comfortable enough because you have small windy roads over there, just like we do in Ireland.
Yeah.
But it really is the best way to get around, and similar to Newfoundland, lots of wonderful bed and breakfasts and hotels all around the island. So lots of people will do a mix and match type trip where they'll do a few nights in B&Bs, staying with local families, then maybe a night in a luxury Irish castle, and then continue on. So we are seeing an increase in interest in that, and also smaller custom groups. So people might do a family group of 8 or 10 people, that kind of thing, staying within their bubble but still traveling together. So we are seeing trends that way. for next year. But there are some differences. You know, if you take the local bus or train at the moment, similar to if you're in a major city in Canada, few of the seats are blocked off, so you have to sit 2 meters apart, etc. And so a lower capacity on any of the public transport as well. But yeah, safety is definitely the priority for us, and I know for all the tourism attractions and other tour operators in Ireland and those selling Ireland, which is great to see.
Now, both of you, just a follow up, which is both Sandra and yourself, Jonathan, mentioned about the sticker and good to go. So just can you just both of you, one of you, tell people what are some of the things that are included in being able to be designated good to go?
Yes, I think there's lots of the stuff that we're very familiar with. You know, it's the physical distancing measures. So at the moment, that's 2 meters. That's being reviewed regularly too. So that may be condensed down. It may change. I think these guidelines are very fluid at the moment. But again, we're being cautious. So at the moment, it's a 2 meter physical distance for most attractions, for example. You know, lots of detailed things like traffic flow in and out of attractions, trying to have contactless payments and touchless payment. And booking policies where possible. I think that's a really, positive knock-on effect to this whole situation. It is that improvement in technology for a lot of these businesses and making it really, really easy for the consumer to work on their own schedule, book in advance, come in and out, and avoid, waiting around in queues and things like that. So it's definitely a positive. The requirement to wear masks or face coverings, and that's in many of them. It really does depend. As I said, the guidelines are per sector. So it depends on the sector that we're talking about, what those guidelines look at, but very similar to the policies and protocols that we are familiar with in Canada at the moment.
Okay. And is this government issued or is it industry issued?
It is government issued, yeah, mandated.
All right, good. Sandra, Newfoundland is well known for its music, and I know Ireland has its traditional music. So how has the pandemic impacted the music industry and the restaurant industry? What kind of things are happening in that area?
Yeah, actually, I've only been to Newfoundland once, and it was the one thing that struck me. The live music there, blaring out onto the streets in St. John's was fantastic. Really reminded me of home a little bit. The music scene is such a huge part of our culture, probably similar to you guys. And it's alive and well, albeit looking a little bit differently at the moment. So what we're doing is, so many concerts and everything, we're moving them online. So we're bringing them to people's homes virtually at the moment. So, for example, we are currently, as Tourism Ireland, trying to keep the spirit of Ireland alive and well in the minds of everybody while we can't travel at this current time. And part of how we're doing that is through our Fill Your Heart with Ireland campaign. A huge element of that is working with musicians and artists across the island of Ireland and getting concerts. There's a series by a well-known group, Other Voices. It's called Courage, and we've been working on that with them to stream Irish concerts live into the homes of Canadians over the summer months. And that's going down really, really well. It's a regular kind of Friday night in my house where I stream it and enjoy a drink with a friend and we watch the live music. So it looks a little bit different at the moment, granted. But the pub really is, like the pub and the Irish music and a trad session is at the heart of our culture. And I really hope that will come back. I think it will, and pubs, as I said, are open at the moment, but they do have certain restrictions in place at this time. But we have a resilient industry, as we talked about earlier. So something that I found fascinating was our industry and our pubs and our bars and our restaurants are being so creative at the moment. There's one particular property in Dublin. It's a well-known place that I used to visit regularly when I lived there. And they've actually installed phones. So an internal grid of phones on each of their tables. So the tables are all socially distant or physically distant from one another, but to keep the social interaction and the joy of being able to speak to people and speak to a stranger in an Irish pub, they have installed this internal phone grid system where you can pick up the phone and dial table number 3 and just get chatting to the essentially strangers at that table, just to keep that social culture still alive. So just being very creative at the moment, and I think things will bounce back and go back to how things were, where there's a trad session in the corner and you can talk to strangers at the bar. But until that time, our pubs and our musicians and our artists are being very creative And we're trying to, bring that to you here in Canada as virtually as best we can at the moment.
Are you allowed to say which pub that is?
Yeah, that's McGowan's in Phibsborough, which is in Dublin. I'm sure there's many others doing it. That's just the one that I'm personally aware of because it was an old local of mine. But I'm sure that that type of solution is really becoming popular across the island as people kind of get creative and have a bit of fun with the current situation that we're in.
Well, hopefully,
as best they can.
Hopefully our viewers who come and book a trip once all this COVID starts to settle down, will hopefully they'll get to go to that pub and experience some good Irish fun and tradition. And Jonathan, can you give our viewers a bit of an overview of the type of itineraries that Royal Irish Tours puts together? Because I know some of the Irish tours take in both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So, and I know there's some others that take in Scotland and the UK and so on, but particularly today, Ireland, and what kinds of things that you put into your itineraries.
Yeah, so coach tours would be the main part of our business. So that's, as I said, next year will be maximum 30 guests, so a nice small group size, all traveling with like-minded Canadians. We do get a lot of people from the East Coast traveling on our tours, and they absolutely love it. We do tend to have a lot more inclusions than lots of the other operators. So, for example, on our 15-day Shamrock Royal Tour that does a full anti-clockwise lap of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and you'd have 11 evening meals included with that. Breakfast is always included daily, all your 4-star hotels, all your attraction visits, as well as the services of an experienced driver and an experienced guide. And we also use local guides for walking tours, for example, in Derry and Waterford. So that's all included within the price you would pay up front. Then we have a slightly more deluxe coach tour series, our Manor Royal, which basically does a similar enough itinerary, around the same price for 4 less nights. The big difference is slightly higher end accommodation. So maximum group size of 26 guests, but it does quite a lot of 5-star hotel stays and 2 nights in a luxury Irish castle. So we do like to do the Republic and Northern Ireland when we do our coach tour series around Ireland. We have a lovely one that does a southern loop too. And then all our tours are combinable with the UK ones as well. So you might do our 2-week Ireland one and then add on a week in Scotland, or our 2-week Ireland one, add on a week in England and Wales, or vice versa. So really is a lot of flexibility with the coach tours. Then after that, our driving holidays, as I touched on, are extremely popular. And we have a wonderful product in Ireland with Bed and Breakfast Ireland. So there's over 1,000 bed and breakfasts on the island of Ireland. Say you book a 7-night bed and breakfast driving holiday, you get 7 vouchers in your documents as soon as your clients deposit, as soon as your guests deposit, and they would get a link where they can go on and pre-book the bed and breakfast or go as they please. So when they arrive at a bed and breakfast, say if Jimmy is full and they haven't pre-booked, he'll call Mary down the road to see if she has space, and then you'll get in. So it's a good way to do it. So some people will pre-book maybe their 1st and 3rd night and get lost along the Wild Atlantic Way or the Causeway Coast route along the way and find somewhere to stay. So everything's fully customizable with our driving holidays. Some people love that bed and breakfast voucher program, but some people might do all 4-star hotels, all 5-star hotels. I always recommend doing at least 2 nights in a castle or a manor house, a really nice, often family-run establishment where you're going to get really great quality food, lovely service, and often lovely grounds and gardens to explore. We also do tours by train, so travel destination to destination on the local train and do a smaller sightseeing tour from there. And we also do smaller sightseeing tours, which are maximum 16 guests. That's on a 29-seater coach. They tend to be shorter trips, anything from 1 day long to 5-day long trips. As well as all that, we can also fully customize a group, as I mentioned before. So if people want to do just their own holiday with a driver and a guide, or just a driver guide, that can also be organized as well. And I know you've done some great groups with us in the past, Derek, as well. So that's just a bit about what we sell. The chauffeur drive product is becoming more popular as well, which is your own personal driver guide with you for the duration of the trip or however many days you book them for. So lots of really great options. We say we're a full service operator for the island of Ireland.
Just with the chauffeur driven So is that limited to just say a couple or maybe 4 people? Because once you go past that, it's probably becomes more of a small group, isn't
Yeah, well, if
it?
they're driving themselves, you can get a vehicle that can take up to 7 people with luggage. So with the chauffeur drive product, you can also do that many. So it really becomes a small group when it's, I would say, 8+ people,
Okay,
where you would need more than one vehicle if they're doing a driving holiday when you get to that many, or if they're doing a chauffeur drive, you probably need a little mini coach by that stage. So the price point will go up a little, if you're doing the slightly larger coach, but the more people you get, the price then tends to come down
sure.
a bit more as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've done the self-drive of the Atlantic Way myself when my daughter lived in Belfast, and went from there, went all the way
nice.
around in 8 days. It was a pretty
Yeah,
speedy trip. And then your team in Scotland did a fabulous job with a specialized group that I had there a couple of years ago. So
yeah.
good on you. Um, so now is an opportunity. There was one question that was forwarded to me, and I'm gonna have to lose my train of thought. So we'll go into it, and I'll remember. I'll get back to where it was because I can't see the question right now. Um, why don't you tell our visitors, our viewers, Sandra and Jonathan, probably 3 of the what you believe to be some key things that the visitors are must sees and are good experiences when visiting Ireland. Sandra, if we can start with you.
Nearly an impossible question to narrow it down to 3. I'll do my best though.
I
Some
know I've
personal
seen
favorites.
so many of them, and I know it was a difficult question. But,
I'll give you some of my personal favorites. One of them is Newgrange. So Newgrange is an ancient historic site, about 40 minutes drive from Dublin. So one of the amazing things about this to me is that it's when you stand on that hill, you can see just countryside for miles and miles around. Yet you're just on the doorstep of Dublin. So it always surprises me a little bit. And it's an ancient monument from megalithic times, dates back, older than the pyramids of Giza, older than Stonehenge. And so over 5,000 years of history in that whole region, which is a beautiful region to explore. We call it Ireland's ancient East. But the really great thing about Newgrange to me is that on the winter solstice every year, the sun shines through the roof box chamber, and it illuminates the entire interior of the building. So just for something that was created that long ago, just blows my mind. And they do fantastic tours of it where they recreate that experience. So to see it on the winter solstice is actually a lottery. It's so popular. You have to enter a lottery to be able to experience it live.
okay.
So it's an incredible thing. If you ever get to see it, I was lucky enough to see it in person when I was about 8 years old. I won that lottery, but they do incredible tours that replicate that experience. And it does feel really real. And they tell you the story and the history and some of the possible ways that it could have been designed at that time.
How to find out more about that? Would that be on the Tourism Irish page?
Yeah, so our website is ireland.com, and there's a really good search function there. So if there's any specific information that you want or attractions to look up, you just put that in the search box, and there's lots of content there that you can explore and articles to read too. So yeah, for anybody watching this, I really recommend visiting ireland.com and taking a deep dive there and exploring a little bit more about Newgrange and all the other regions. We also have a Facebook page, as I know this is on Facebook Live. So our handle is Discover Ireland CA. And that's exclusively for our Canadian visitors. So definitely follow us on there if you're not already.
Okay.
Another thing for me would be the Causeway Coastal Route, which I think you've probably done, Derek. If you're saying you drove up past Belfast, you probably experienced this for yourself. So hopefully you agree with me. But definitely a favorite of mine. I lived in Ireland all my life, and I actually never took this drive until just before I was about to move to Canada. And it was one of my biggest regrets, I think, that I hadn't experienced it beforehand, because it's a really short drive from Dublin. It's probably 3 hours north to the tip of the Causeway Coastal Route in Northern Ireland. And on that drive, you can see the Giant's Causeway, which many of you are probably familiar with, and there's the Carrick-a-Reedy Rope Bridge. There's just so many amazing attractions dotted along that drive. So something I recommend.
I did the rope bridge and the Giant's Causeway. So
very brave man to do that rope bridge.
There it is there.
Oh yeah,
But
it's right
that's what it
behind
looks
Dublin.
like.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does
it's a cool
have
thing.
those. I mean, the causeway, those pillars, the way the volcanic pillars are there is just amazing.
Yeah, and
So,
there's lots of really fun stories behind it too of how it was created, and the tour guides there, really spin a yarn and tell you all about that. And then I suppose my third and final one would be Epic. So back to Dublin. Epic is the Irish Emigration Museum, and it's right in the heart of Dublin. And it sounds a bit heavy or not too fun, but it's actually the world's first fully immersive digital museum. And it won Europe's leading tourist attraction last year. So beating out all those hero icons all across Europe, it won that award, which I think is a pretty amazing feat and says a lot about it. But with 4.5 million Canadians claiming some Irish heritage, I think it's definitely one that our Canadian visitors should check out.
excellent. And Jonathan, your top three. Again, I know it's difficult to pick
Yeah,
three.
absolutely. I know, yeah. Well, I do love the Causeway Coastal Route, but I won't pick that as one of my three, but it would be one of my favorite things to do on the island of Ireland. It really is a beautiful route from just north of Belfast all the way up through the Glens and to the Giant's Causeway. But I love the kind of that if you continue up to Northern Ireland and you head across to the northwest of Ireland, so the northern part of the Wild Atlantic Way, so Donegal, Sligo, Mayo, that whole region is absolutely beautiful, especially if you like the outdoors. So there is home to Sleegleaf Cliffs, which are some of the highest sea cliffs in Europe. They're actually 3 times the size of the Cliffs of Moher, which of course is the much more well known and visited. Also breathtaking and stunning down in the southwest of Ireland. But there's some really fun towns up there. Like I did a driving holiday a few years ago with a friend. We did a couple of nights in Westport, which is a beautiful town in County Mayo, and we just didn't use a phone or a map or anything. We just said we're going to drive to Donegal and we're going to get lost along the way. So you just find the coast. The Wild Atlantic Way is one of the best signposted roads in the world, 2,500 kilometers from the tip of Donegal all the way to the most southern part and down to Kinsale in County Cork. So that just when you get to the coast, there's a Wild Atlantic Way sign, and it'll say this way for south, this way for north, and you just drive along it. And it really is breathtaking. There's lots of signature points to stop along the way. If you're into activities, even a stroll on the beach is a lovely thing to do. You can do a lot of outdoor activities like canoeing and kayaking or horseback riding, surfing if you're more adventurous and things like that. But really just the breathtaking landscape along the way. Donegal town is a really fun town. Lots of great hotels and restaurants located right in the heart of it. But there's two really nice luxurious hotels about 9 kilometers outside. So Harvey's Point and Loch Esk Castle, and they're both within 2 kilometers of each other and both really beautiful 5-star properties. So Harvey's Point is basically a 5-star. It doesn't have all the designations to be a 5-star, but definitely 5-star quality and service. So that would be one of my favorite parts, the northern part of the Wild Atlantic Way. One of the most popular places to visit is County Kerry and Killarney being the main town there. But I really love the town of Dingle, which is about 30 minutes further out. Again, one of the most westerly towns in Europe. Beautiful, beautiful place. And for a small little town, it has over 40 pubs, and so great for the live Irish music scene. So once social distancing and things are removed or loosened a bit, it's a really great place to visit for some live traditional Irish music. And I'd say it has a big appeal to people from Newfoundland. It almost feels like they're at home when you're going off on a nice driving holiday around the island there as well. But County Kerry, there's some really beautiful towns. Killarney, and if you do the Ring of Kerry trip, there's some really great small villages like Sneem. Kenmare is another really beautiful town, and you could spend a week in those locations. Like you could pick Dingle, Killarney, or Kenmare and stay there for 3 nights and just do some really nice day trips around the area from there. I'll mention Dublin as well because Sandra didn't mention it. Both Sandra and I are actually from Dublin. Um, but as a tourist going to Dublin, it really is amazing. Like even when I go back and visit, I love to go and explore Temple Bar, even by day and by night. It's known as the touristy area, but it's touristy for a reason because it really is amazing. Beautiful cobbled streets. There's food markets and things, and during the day at the weekends, there's lots of quirky little shops. And then some of the pubs will have live Irish music 364 days of the year. The only day they'd be closed generally is Christmas Day. So again, Dublin is really beautiful. Things like Epic Ireland that Sandra mentioned. There's the Little Museum of Dublin if you want the history of Dublin in a 30-minute tour, and that's a really nice tour to visit. But there's really not lots of beautiful parks, attractions. Obviously, the likes of the Guinness Storehouse and things are well known. Stephen's Green is a beautiful city centre park at the top of Grafton Street, and Phoenix Park, just a little further out, is the largest city park in Europe. So some really beautiful things to do. And again, you're only an hour from Newgrange, like Sandra mentioned. You're an hour down to the Wicklow Mountains and Glendalough and places like that. So really, I always recommend, if you can, 2 nights in either Dublin or Belfast on your tour to really get that city experience, as well as exploring the countryside, the Wild Atlantic Way and the like. So they'd be some of my top tips.
I know, as you probably know, Newfoundlanders, some of the connection Newfoundland has is down around the Wexford area, and the southeast corner of Ireland, right? That's where tends to be a lot of Newfoundland connection to families and so on. Now they're all over Ireland as well, but that tended to be the cluster where a lot of Irish that came to Newfoundland and stayed here tend to come from. So it's a great, I mean, I could go on about all the different places I enjoyed there, and it's, cutting it down to 3 is very, very difficult. And some of, for me, most people, they want to kiss the Blarney Stone and all of those things as well. So, but I agree. I mean, Temple Bar in Dublin is just, it's an entertainment in itself, right? Last time I went through, I had a stopover that was very short, late, getting there late one night, getting out early the next morning. So I just stored my luggage. I went to Temple Bar till probably 2 o'clock in the morning, took the bus back out to the airport, and then got on my flight. And it was just total entertaining, sitting at this local bar. I forget the name of it now, and had 2 or 3 beers, and then I went back on again. But it was the entertainment of just watching people more than anything. But one of the questions that came up was, Sandra, what kind of things will Tourism Ireland be doing to from a promotional standpoint to attract people back to Ireland once COVID is over? Because there's going to be so many demands, and people are going to want to travel, and all the different aspects of the travel industry are going to be out there pulling for these people. So what are some of the things that Tourism Ireland are going to try to attract people back to Ireland?
Yeah, great question. I think at the moment we're trying to stay in the market and make sure that Ireland does stay top of mind for consumers, even now, even while we are in the streaming phase. I think I, for one, have been, dream now, travel later, and really racking things up for my bucket list at the moment. So we do have the Fill Your Heart with Ireland campaign out at the moment, where we're trying to bring a flavour and a taste of what you can do and how you can experience Ireland when the time is right. So looking at different themes, whether that is, genealogy and ancestry, connecting people to their heritage and their culture from Canada to Ireland, and culinary. I think one of the things that we hear from our visitors when they return from Ireland is how surprised they were by the food. So everyone knows us, for a pint of Guinness or, maybe our whiskey. But I think the food really blows people's mind when they come back. They really aren't expecting it to be as high quality as it is. So we're trying to, educate people a little bit on that and what they can expect from Irish cuisine when they can travel. And, we're an island, so our seafood is absolutely fantastic, for example, if anyone's tried Irish oysters. And as I said, really kind of trying to bring virtual experiences to people's homes at this time. But looking forward then, I suppose, when things do start to move along and when we can travel again, we've all been cooped up for quite a long time, I feel. We're all getting a little bit of cabin fever maybe. And I think Ireland is so well placed to break away from that and get a little bit of a break and a reprieve. We're known for our beautiful landscapes and our rolling hills. We have beautiful mountain walks and hikes, and, our wellness tourism is huge, you know, for whether it's yoga or hiking or anything like that. And I know I, for one, the one thing I'm really looking forward to doing is getting back home and exploring the Irish countryside. And we're also known for our people and our hospitality. And I think that Irish warm welcome, as Jonathan said earlier, that Céad Míle Fáilte, the 100,000 welcomes, is alive and well across the island of Ireland. And we can't wait to be able to showcase that and bring that to people. Yeah, just getting in touch with rural communities and things like that as well. I think travel will look a little different maybe when we do initially start to travel again. I think what will probably happen first is people's priorities and reasons for travel might change a little bit. So whether that is, you know, a lot of us have not been able to visit, you know, family or close friends who might live in different countries, live abroad, who might live in different provinces even at this point. So I think, you know, a lot of it will be, you know, reconnecting people back with their friends and family and with the Irish culture as well, I hope. There's a couple of things that we'll be doing. And as I said, follow us on our social media channels. It's Discover Ireland CA on Facebook. We're Go to Ireland on Twitter, and Tourism Ireland on Instagram for lots of amazing inspirational imagery and just a little taste of what people can expect when those entry restrictions are lifted and when we can travel again.
So the last question goes to Jonathan, and a question that someone looking at your bar wants to know how much you promote your Irish whiskey and Guinness in your tours.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always like to include, I'm actually up in our office in Richmond Hill today. I wish I had a bar like this in my own home. So there's a good mix of Scotch and good Irish whiskies up there on the bar. But we always try to include at least one whiskey distillery on our tours. So we have Kilbeggan, which is a lovely distillery on one of our tours. And we're now using the new Pierce Lyons distillery in Dublin. So there's been a real resurgence of distilleries in recent years. There's now over 30, I believe, Sandra, visitor attractions, which there didn't previously be. You know, Scotland has a huge number, but Ireland has been a little behind in having the visitor experiences, but there's some really fantastic experiences now. Bushmills is the oldest working distillery in the world, which is just 5 kilometers from the Causeway Coastal Route, so that's a lovely visit as well. But yeah, whiskey is always included on our tours. In some of the welcome dinners, often the welcome drink, if it's not a nice day, might be a hot toddy, which would be a whiskey and hot water, and with lemon and cloves and a bit of sugar, or an Irish coffee, which would be whiskey and coffee. And then we do a live music session in the Marine Bar in Waterford on one of our tours, the Manor Royal, where people can either have a whiskey, an Irish coffee, or a Guinness. So that's a really nice touch as well. Just you mentioned, Derek, about a lot of people from Newfoundland coming from the Wexford area. I had the guy from Jack Birchall, who does walking tours in Waterford, on a few weeks ago on my webinars that I do. And he said that about 70% of people in Canada would have come from within, 50 miles of Waterford. But a lot of them would have travelled from further afield in Ireland. That's just where the main ports were. So New Ross has the Dunbrody Famine Ship, which is a fantastic experience in South Wexford. But then Waterford and Cove and Cork would have been the main ports and where people left from. So a lot of people in Newfoundland they'll say they have relatives in Cork, Waterford, Wexford. They may have been from Donegal and they made the long trek down, and when they arrived in Canada, would have just stamped where they come from. So that's a really interesting bit of history, and you kind of learn when you do these walking tours, and there's lots of really fantastic experiences and hidden gems and little nuggets of information you get as you go. But yes, whiskey, to answer your question, whiskey and Guinness are always a good part of our tours.
Actually, just like you talked about the Giant's Causeway earlier, and speaking of whiskey, there is a really cool thing that you can do on the Giant's Causeway called Whiskey on the Rocks. So Jonathan mentioned Bushmills Distillery there. So a tour guide from Bushmills Distillery will take you down to the Giant's Causeway after hours when there's nobody else around, and you can enjoy your whiskey tasting on the rocks of the Giant's Causeway with a guide from the Bushmills Distillery and from the Giant's Causeway. So you get to combine those two things, and that's booked exclusively through travel agents. So you could only book that through someone like Derek.
And last but not least, do both of you speak the Irish Gaelic?
On cúpla focal, a little bit. We all learn it in schools when we're growing up. It's a mandatory part of our education. You can't graduate high school without speaking it. So yes, I do. Jonathan, a little bit as well.
I speak very little as well. Everyone remembers what they had to ask the teacher when they were in school. So you put your hand up and you'd ask to go to the bathroom. So I can say that. On will Ciadagum Dul Dion let us know. Yeah. So everyone, all Irish people will remember that if they don't remember anything else.
I did a 6-week, 1 night a day or 1 night a week thing here a little while ago, but it was, I can't even remember to say hello. So, but I tried. Anyhow, just to conclude, is Sandra and Jonathan, is there anything else you would like to tell our viewers about before we conclude?
Nothing for me other than just to say thanks to you, Derek, for having us on today, and to remind people again of our website, our social media channels, ireland.com. And we're here if anybody has any questions about the travel restrictions or anything like that they need to know about traveling to Ireland. We're always here. We're always at the end of the phone or an email, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time.
Jonathan?
Yeah, and for me, again, just thank you to you, Derek, and thank you for everyone for listening. And just say how important tourism is to us all in Ireland. So we really hope many of you will consider visiting Ireland again next year or in 2022. So we will give you that warm Irish welcome when you arrive. And if I'm in Ireland at the time, I promise to buy you a pint or a nice Irish whiskey.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, Sandra, Jonathan, for being part of Derek's Travel Chats. It's been wonderful, a lot of great information. I hope all of the viewers and people who view this after, who couldn't be on, watch it live, who watch it, will watch it either through Facebook and YouTube, will have questions that they can send back through me and to you if I'm not able to answer them. But it was a pleasure to have you both on today and being part of this. So again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the week, which is 1 day. All right. Thank you very much. And everybody take care and stay safe.
Thanks,
everyone. Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.